So then once again on the 9 by 12 sort of modification here, you can use a stencil that is done on tracing paper with or without detail. You can use more of an actual template type of stencil, which is something that you would make out of a stiff paper like cardstock, or an extra folder or something like that that you can kind of just get rid of. And then you would be ready to go ahead and start putting your shape, or your silhouette, I should say, into each of the different sections for each element. So remember, if you have tracing paper, you have to have graphite on the back of the tracing paper so that when I trace over these lines, they actually go through so that I end up with my silhouette drawn on the paper. If you only have graphite on one side, then the tracing paper will not work. And remember that you can modify a little bit even in the tracing step before you get to any of the alteration steps. So for instance, since this one is line, I might not want to put the white part that I've drawn on the hair here. I may just leave it as a very basic version of that shape. And then in the next one, because it is shape, maybe I decide I want her facing the other direction, still centered. And then this time I am going to draw the white section that is in her hair, because it is essentially a shape. So that's just a reminder that you can sort of pick and choose which elements you use the most detail on the silhouette in. Some of the elements, like texture for instance, you're probably not going to want to use a whole lot of interior detail so that you can focus on the actual texture that you are putting on the piece. So remember that the silhouette that you use is completely up to you. You will find a reference image to be working from so that you can be looking at something as you draw it, and then you will make your stencil or your tracing based on your drawing. So there, I would still have to come in here and I would darken these lines a little bit before I forget sort of where they go. And sometimes when you are working with tracing paper, you'll have to do that. So that's a good habit to just go ahead and check on those lines once you finish with the tracing portion. Just see if any of them need to be made a little more visible while you still remember where they are. So then be ready to go ahead and move to the next one. Remember that I could put her facing whichever direction I want. I could put her upside down. I could leave parts of it out. Since this one is color, I might very well go ahead and include the white portions that are in here and leave that white and have the rest of it be tons and tons of color so that I get that sort of contrast between color and white. On the value one, I'll probably leave the white portion off and do a gradient on her and a gradient on the background that are separate. So that's kind of some examples of how you could modify things a little bit. But essentially the concept at this point, once you get it drawn onto the paper, is the same regardless of whether you have a 21-inch long piece or a 9 by 12 piece. Again, if you are working on something smaller because you just don't have access to either side, email me and we'll figure it out and I'll help you make sure that you can still complete the project.